I'm tempted to say that when I was growing up in Kentucky in the 50s, Christmas was a simpler affair. But of course it was simpler from my perspective. I was a kid. I had no responsibility but to sit and wait for Christmas to happen. And as far as I knew, it was simpler for adults too. I was under the impression that Santa Claus took care of everything. But Christmas really was simpler for the male gender back then, because it was understood that the women would take care of all the cleaning and the cooking. After our holiday meals, the women would clear the table and disappear into the kitchen, while the men set up a card table in the living room in front of the black and white television. Beer and cigars appeared, and Granddaddy and his brothers, Uncle Lewis and Uncle Henry, commenced playing cards with one eye and watching football with the other. Sometimes I'd climb up in Granddaddy's lap and he'd let me have a sip of his beer. He always drank either Schlitz or Erdel's 92. I never had to acquire a taste. I liked it right away. It tasted like Granddaddy. As he became more involved in the card game, I became more involved in the beer until I would fall asleep in his lap. All of us grandchildren called my grandmother Dot Dot. Dot was short for Dorothy. As a toddler, I added a second dot and it stuck. The real mystery is why anyone ever called her Dorothy in the first place. Her name was Catherine. Granddaddy suffered a stroke when I was just 7. Uncle Lewis and Uncle Henry passed away around that same time. But Dot Dot lived on into my young adulthood. She was a funny little thing. As time thinned her hair, she took to wearing a wig of a luxurious brunette color not found in nature among women her age. A true Kentuckian, she liked her bourbon. A memory lingers of her leaving our house one night, giggling, with wig askew, and my dad asking if she was sure she was okay to drive. This was my mom's side of the family. I never knew my dad's parents as well. We would pay them an obligatory visit on Christmas afternoon, and I would receive a little dress shirt or a bow tie or some gift similarly repugnant to a young boy. Granddaddy Brooks died of an overabundance of Southern cooking while I was still quite young. His widow, my dad's mother, was a repository of ailments. My most enduring memory of her is that she would sit at the dinner table going, ooh, ooh, ooh. Well, honey, aren't you going to ask me what's wrong? The other fixtures around my childhood Christmas table were great-great-great cousin William and his wife Aunt Edna. They were a colorful duo. Cousin William was vice president of a distillery and believed in bringing his work home with him. He and Aunt Edna would have a drink or two before leaving their house, another couple at our house before dinner, and by the time we all sat down at the table, they were attacking each other like Republicans and Democrats. Cousin William liked to bait Aunt Edna by speaking ill of Sam, their dachshund. Truth be told, I think he was secretly fond of Sam, but he never failed to get a rise out of Edna by saying that he had a good mind to slip Sam the needle. Edna would spit out some venomous response, to which Bill would reply, I think maybe I ought to slip you the needle, Edna. The rest of us would laugh tentatively, never quite certain whether we were witnessing performance art or mayhem in the making. A recurring story of Aunt Edna's had to do with their courtship. Coming home from a date on a moonless night, the porch light was burned out, and Cousin William couldn't locate the keyhole to open the door. Aunt Edna would say, I told him, Bill, if that thing had hair around it, I bet you could find it. But back to Dot Dot. If memory serves, she passed away in 1982. My mother tells me that Dot Dot was a harsh taskmaster, a former school teacher who expected perfection from her own children. But as the oldest grandchild, I could do no wrong. Dot Dot and I had a special relationship. About 5 years after her death, I stumbled upon a Merle Haggard song called Grandma's Homemade Christmas Card. As I listened, I anticipated that Merle was taking us where so many country songwriters did during that period. They would sing the praises of some beloved figure for 2 verses, only to reveal in verse 3 that the beloved figure had passed away. I thought, Merle, if you were half the songwriter you think you are, you wouldn't manipulate an audience like that. You'd break the news in the first line of the song that Grandma was dead, and then if you could still come up with 3 verses and a chorus, you might have something. So I climbed in bed with my guitar, and I wrote my own Merle Haggard Christmas song. I dredged up those childhood memories of the Christmas poker games with Granddaddy and his brother, most of all Dot Dot with her wig and her whiskey. Had she lived just 5 years longer, I'm sure no one would have gotten a bigger kick out of the song that resulted. And whenever it's played on the radio, I suppose that in a way, my relatives and their idiosyncrasies live on in other families' Christmas festivities. Merry Christmas, everybody. Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for me and Grandpa, we believe. She'd been drinking too much eggnog, and we begged her not to go. But she'd left her medication, so she stumbled out the door into the snow. When we found her Christmas morning at the scene of the attack, she had hoof prints on her forehead and incriminating claws marks on her back. Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. Say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for me and Grandpa, we believe. Now we're all so proud of Grandpa. He's been taking this so well. See him in there watching football, drinking beer and playing cards with Cousin Mel. It's not Christmas without Grandma. All the family's dressed in black, and we just can't help but wonder, should we open up her gifts or send them back? Send them back! Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for me and Grandpa, we believe. Now the goose is on the table, and a pudding made of fig, and a blue and silver candle that would just have matched the hair in Grandma's wig. I warned all my friends and neighbors, better watch out for yourselves. They should never give a license to a man who drives a sleigh and plays with elves. Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve.